Your ability to quickly and accurately read the flight of the ball is one of the most important skills in tennis. Lack of ability to read the flight of the ball quickly is why players prepare late, it's why players don't get set up in the right position for their shots, and it's one of the biggest things that prevents players from improving and taking their game to the next level. So if you're the sort of player that really struggles to quickly read the flight of the ball, I want to help you with that in this video. I'm going to start by talking about kind of how we train it on court, and then I want to show you a specific vision assessment and training exercise that can help to address underlying problems that prevent you from being able to read the flight of the ball. So hopefully you find the video helpful. If you do, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, it always really helps me out if you could do that as well. So let's start by talking about what you can do on court to improve your ability to quickly and accurately read the flight of the ball. And this is going to be split up into kind of two sections. We've got anticipation, and then we've got actually reading the flight of the ball. Obviously, the anticipation side comes first. Your job is to pay attention to what your opponent's doing. So as they shape up for the ball, what shot does it look like they're trying to hit? And then what swing path are they using? Because their swing path is going to give you a lot of clues about what's potentially going to happen to the ball. If they're swinging from low to high, then they're going to be hitting with topspin, or maybe they're hitting it flat. If they're swinging from high to low, then it's going to be slice. So the ball is obviously going to fly differently and it's going to react off the court differently. And that's going to be the same whether it's on the backhand with a two-hand or a one-hander, or you'll be able to hopefully tell if they're hitting a slice from high to low by kind of focusing on the way they prepare for their shots and then the swing path. And then of course you can look at how quickly they're swinging their racket. So if you can see that someone is swinging the racket more slowly, then the likelihood is that the ball isn't going to be coming through as quickly, although sometimes that can be fairly deceptive. If somebody's like really trying to swing hard, the likelihood is that the ball is going to be coming more quickly. But again, sometimes that can be deceptive because people can swing really hard and not have good timing. But that's kind of a general thing that you can look at. From there, it is about trying to really read the flight of the ball, kind of making yourself aware of doing that while you're playing. So hopefully you're landing from your split step just after they've made contact. So then visually you'll be able to recognize where the ball's going in time with reacting off the court and moving as quickly as you can. But if we take away the split step at the moment and just focus on the ball watching, you're basically looking for the ball. It's normally easy for players to tell whether it's going left or whether it's going right. So do they need to move to their forehand? Do they need to move to their backhand? So what we're really thinking about is the height of the ball. Is the ball low or is it high? And if it's high, what's the likely flight of the ball? If it's low, what's the likely flight of the ball? So then we can start to either move forwards or move back. And you've basically just got to train yourself to pay attention and do that over and over again. And here's where you have to focus. The hard thing in tennis is there's so many different things that you might have to do. There's so many different aspects of your technique that you might need to work on. So you might have all of your energy being consumed by the unit turn or, the racket lag or some aspect of your shot. Well, if you're not reading the flight of the ball quickly and effectively and you're preparing late and stuff like that, that's going to have to be your priority. So you have to forget about some of the other stuff for now, or at least put it as a secondary thing within your mind and just focus all your attention on reading the flight of the ball. So as soon as they've made contact, you're maybe trying to predict to yourself, is it going short? Is it going long? You could maybe split the court up into 3 sections. Is it going short? Is it going middle? Is it going deep? And train yourself to recognize the ball. And then by combining that with watching the shape of their swing, doing those two things together can be an important part of the solution to help you read the flight of the ball more quickly and effectively. Now that we've talked about how you can work on things on court, let's talk about potential limiting factors and things that you might need to work on off court. Because just like everything else in tennis, there is a skill component, a skill requirement. If you want to be able to hit different shots, you need to have a really good degree of coordination. If you want to be able to read the flight of the ball effectively, your visual system has to work really well. And the reality is that the vast majority of adult tennis players, visual systems don't work well enough. The reason that this happens is because our eyes are just like camera lenses. It's our brain that does the seeing. Our brain tells the muscles what to do to point the eyes at the target. It's then our brain that processes the visual information and makes decisions based on that. And our brains are plastic. They adapt based on what we do. And generally, people go to school at a young age. They start sitting down, looking at screens, looking downwards, looking at things that are really close. And then they go through college or they go to work and they do exactly the same thing. So throughout the course of your life, your visual system is adapting to looking at screens up close. And that means it's not preparing you to be able to see a ball flying at you at different directions at different speeds from around 78 feet away. So because of that, a lot of adult tennis players' systems don't function at the level they need to. They're able to do their job, they're able to drive cars, but that is a completely different thing to being able to play tennis in the way that you probably want to be able to play. The good news though is that we can change that. It works both ways. The system can get worse or the system can get better. So what I want to do is talk about how to train and improve it. We're going to be working on a specific assessment and corrective or training exercise, but I'm also holding a free live 5-day Neuro Tennis Challenge pretty soon, where I'm going to be showing more vision assessments and more different types of vision training. So if you're interested in diving into this deeper, I'll place a link to that free workshop down in the description so that you can check it out and then potentially register. But here we're going to work on an exercise with a bit of equipment called a Brock string, which is basically just a string with beads on it. Now you can get them at different lengths with different numbers of beads. It doesn't really matter. Here the Brock string that I'm using has 3 beads and it's about 10 feet long. You attach them to something, so I've attached it to the net post. You could attach it to a door frame or anything that you've got handy at home, and then you're basically going to back away, you're going to straighten out, and you're going to set the beads at different distances. Generally, I go for the closer bead at 6 inches. I go for the next bead at around contact point distance away. And then the third bead, I tend to have as far away as possible. And we're testing for kind of 2 different things with this assessment. We're testing for something called visual suppression, which is whether your brain is able to use both images together, because we've got 2 eyes. As I said, it's the brain that does the seeing, the brain that processes information, but our brain should process information from both eyes, and that's called binocular vision, and that enables us to judge distance and depth and speed, which is obviously really, really important for your ability to read the flight of the ball. So we can assess whether our brain is using both images with this assessment, and we can also assess eye alignment. Does your brain actually focus on the target, or is it focusing a little bit before the target or after the target? So we're going to be doing both at the same time. So I'm going to wrap my bead string around my finger like so, and then I'm going to back away so the string is taut. And I'm going to look at this first bead, and I'm going to look directly into the center of the bead. And as I look at the center of the bead, I should see 2 strings go into the bead, 2 strings coming out of the back of the bead. The reason that I'm seeing 2 strings is because I have 2 eyes. So my right eye is here, it's looking in that direction, so it sees a string. My left eye is here, it's looking at the bead, so it sees a string. And both of the strings should be an equal level of brightness. And both the strings coming out the back of the bead should be an equal level of brightness. If one of the strings is missing, so maybe the right string or the left string is missing, that is suppression. That means your brain isn't able to use the image from both eyes. For some people, it won't be completely missing, but it will just be faded. So maybe the left string is really bright, but the right string is just a little bit more dull. It's kind of faded, maybe a gray color, or maybe it appears and then disappears. That's a kind of partial suppression. It means that your brain can kind of see it, but it's not using it optimally. And then you get situations where the brain does funny things. Maybe it'll switch from right to left and it'll change around. All those things indicate that your brain isn't processing the image from both eyes as effectively as it should be, because it should see 2 strings of equal brightness going in and coming out. And then in terms of the eye alignment, it should go into the center of the bead. Some people, the strings will cross before the bead because the eyes are kind of not quite lined up in that sense. Some people, the strings will cross after the bead because their brain is kind of focusing just behind the bead. And then we want to test this at the first distance, the second distance, and the third distance, because it's possible that you're able to use the images correctly at a close distance, but not at a far distance, and vice versa. So we basically want to test that out and find that out. So if you have a bit of string, then you can do that now. If you need to get a piece of string, or you need to kind of buy a Brock string from somewhere, do that and test it out and see how you get on. Obviously, feel free to leave me a comment down below and let me know what happened. And then now we'll talk about how to train it. And the cool thing about all things neuro is If you struggle at any brain-based assessment, the first thing that you do to try and correct it is more of the assessment. So as a training exercise, we can just practice switching between the beads. So I can look at the first bead, try and focus on it and see, do I see bow strings? And if I can't, try and get my brain to pay attention to bow strings. And maybe I could flick the string a little bit and now it's bouncing and moving. That might get my brain to pay attention a little bit better. Then I can look at the second bead, and again, maybe I can do the same thing, flicking it to see if that helps. Then I can look at the third bead, see if that helps, and then back to the first bead. And I can just literally set myself a timer for maybe 60 seconds, switching back and forth, trying to focus on the target as quickly and accurately as I can each time, and then trying to bring my brain's or raise my brain's awareness to kind of pay attention to bow strings at the same time. So a very simple exercise, and you could do that each day. You could maybe do 2 or 3 sets. So do a minute, rest for a minute, do another minute, rest for a minute, do another minute, and you could turn it into a mini little program like this. And it can be a very effective exercise for helping to break visual suppression, for helping to improve eye alignment, and by doing both of those things, it can really help you to improve your ability to read the flight of the ball, especially if you then combine it with good on-court practice, with kind of focused intent, trying to anticipate and trying to recognize what the ball's doing. So simple assessment and training exercise. But like I said a moment ago, if you'd like to dive in more and learn about vision training in tennis, I'm holding that free live event. The link's down in the description. Click on that link, it'll take you over to a different page where you can learn more about it and potentially register. Okay, hopefully this video has been enjoyable, at least helpful. Would be even better if it was. Give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, like I said at the start, always helps me out if you do that. Any questions or comments about this stuff, leave them down below.